Cartoons! The perfect escape from reality, right? Well, maybe not when it comes to love. Don't get me wrong here, cartoon love can be sweet, sure. But let's be honest, sometimes it isn't always sunshine and rainbows. Ever looked at a couple and wondered, how the hell are these two still together? Well, that's what we'll be looking at today, the worst lovers in cartoon history. First up are Peter and Lois Griffin from Family Guy. These two might seem like a typical sitcom couple, a goofy husband and a patient wife. But in reality, they're a perfect example of everything you should avoid in a marriage. Their marriage is a total mess. Peter acts more like a gigantic kid than an adult, constantly dragging Lois into his ridiculous antics. Like in Peter's Two Dads, Peter got drunk and ruined Meg's birthday, and Lois was left to clean up the emotional and physical mess he'd caused. Peter is downright irresponsible, and this gets him fired frequently. In Death Has a Shadow, his laziness cost him his job, thus leaving Lois to bear the financial burden alone. And let's not forget his wandering eye. Peter has flirted with infidelity countless times, like in Big Man on Hippocampus when he loses his memory and starts hitting on other women. Poor Lois. Well, at least he can cite his memory loss in his defense. But what's your defense for this, Peter? Peter is one selfish guy who barely considers those close to him. Remember in Family Guy viewer mail where he uses all the genie wishes for himself? That's how little he considers Lois's feelings. And how does Lois deal with all this? All she does is play the patient wife role, often making sarcastic remarks about Peter's behavior instead of addressing it. But she's not a saint either. She's one unfaithful bitch. She cheats on Peter with Bill Clinton in Bill and Peter's Bogus Journey. She even made out with Meg's boyfriend, who is a minor, by the way. And God, who knows what would have happened if Meg had not entered the room.
Kiss me.
Mom, I forgot my keys. Do you know where?
Lois has also assaulted Peter physically on several occasions. Peter and Lois really set the bar low for relationship goals. I mean, they constantly belittle and abuse each other, both physically and verbally, and communication between them, non-existent. Next up, we've got Jerry and Beth Smith from Rick and Morty. If toxic codependency was an Olympic event, these two would win gold. Jerry is always insecure, and instead of dealing with his feelings, he manipulates Beth using passive-aggressive tactics. In Rickshank Redemption, Jerry feels threatened by Rick's presence. But instead of having a conversation with Beth about it, he convinces the entire family to turn against Rick. He even struggles to have any authority over his own damn family, while his wife is a smart house veterinarian. What a mismatch. Beth, on the other hand, has her own issues. She's got an unmatched superiority complex.
Beth, do you still love me?
Ugh, what kind of question is that?
The yes or no kind?
Jerry, do you want homeless people to have homes?
Yes.
Are you gonna build them?
No.
Then what good was the yes?
Her resentment towards Jerry and disregard for his feelings are very evident.
Loving you is work, Jerry. Hard work. Like building a homeless shelter. Nobody wants to say no to doing it, but some people put the work in.
Beth's unresolved daddy issues makes things even worse, like in autoerotic assimilation, where she compared Jerry to her emotionally distant father. She also has very little interest in fixing their marriage problems. Remember when she avoided family therapy in Pickle Rick, or when she retreated to a fantasy world from her childhood in The ABCs of Beth instead of facing her own family issues? The most telling moment of their relationship was in Rick's Teen Minutes when they saw alternate versions of their lives without each other and somehow they were better off. However, instead of splitting up, they choose to stick to their cycle of resentment and codependency. These two are definitely the most toxic couple on this list, and the only reason they're still together is because of their kids. Moving on, we've got the most dysfunctional cartoon couple. Homer and Marge Simpson have been together for like ever, but their marriage is far from perfect. Homer is selfish, irresponsible, and childish. His reckless spending put a constant strain on their finances, and his complete disregard for that only creates more tension in the family. Homer also disregards Marge's feelings, as evident in The Last Temptation of Homer, where he almost cheated with a coworker. His wandering eye doesn't just stop there. In The War of the Simpsons, he openly flirts with Maude Flanders during a marriage retreat that was supposed to save his relationship. And if you thought that was all, then you're totally wrong, because he nearly started a relationship with a country singer in Colonel Homer. Homer is terrible at communicating and has lack of awareness, which makes it hard for their relationship. Remember that one time he took a marriage class only to end up embarrassing Marge by revealing her secrets? Marge's enabling character contributes greatly to their unhappy marriage. She's got the patience of a saint, that's for sure, and that's what holds their relationship together. She's constantly pushed to the limits by Homer's endless misdoings. But despite all this, she keeps forgiving him over and over again. In Homer Alone, we see her leaving after getting fed up with everything, only for her to return because, well, apparently someone needs to be the adult in the house. In the Simpsons movie, we finally see her reach her breaking point after years of silence.
Homer Simpson. After all I put up with for all these years, if I'm not your best friend, what is this marriage about?
And surprisingly, even after all of that, she somehow still holds the family together, hoping that Homer might actually grow up one day. Joe and Bonnie Swanson from Family Guy might seem like a more stable couple at first, but their relationship is much darker. Bonnie's frustration with Joe's disability has turned into cruelty. At one point, she even plans to buy a house on a cliff, hoping Joe will roll off the edge.
Can you open the sliding door? I'll take it.
Then there's the time she tried to poison him by grinding glass in his food. Bonnie's resentment is chilling, and her lack of empathy for Joe is traumatizing to watch. She's openly had affairs, even flirting with leaving Joe in the Foreign Affairs episode. Joe, on the other hand, has become increasingly passive, letting Bonnie cheat on him.
Oh, Bonnie opened her curtains.
Sounds like somebody's having fun.
Joe? I thought that was you.
Ah, goodness, no. Pass me a Michael Crichton.
In Believe It or Not, Joe's walking on air. Joe gets a leg transplant to try and save their marriage. But Bonnie ended up crippling him again because she preferred him when he was dependent on her.
My gun down!
Not until I have my husband back!
Ah, my perfect ass!
Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. I was aiming for your spine.
She even blew up their house and walked away smiling when she thought Joe had died. Now, let's look at Bob and Miriam Pataki from Hey Arnold! Bob is always obsessed with his beeper business, such that he never pays attention to his family. Remember in Helga's Parrot where he completely ignored Miriam's attempts to talk and instead rants about beeper sales? Bob is always yelling and is very abusive to Miriam. Miriam, on the other hand, is always in another world. Once a lady with a bright future, she ended up being an alcoholic. You see, she gave up all her dreams to marry Bob, but ends up living a miserable life that she regrets. As a result, she turns to alcohol in order to cope with her unhappiness. She spends most of her time blending suspicious drinks, slurring her words, and passing out in random places. Like in Helga on the Couch, she's seen passed out in the kitchen, blender in hand, while mumbling about smoothies. But we all know that it wasn't a smoothie she was sipping. The worst part is that she's so checked out that Bob doesn't even notice her struggles. These two barely talk to each other except when their eldest daughter Olga comes home. Bob's verbal abuse and Miriam's emotional absence create a toxic environment that leaves their youngest daughter Helga feeling completely neglected. Even when Bob has a health scare in Bob's big crisis, he barely reflects on his mistakes before going back to his old ways. Last but not least, we've got Joker and Harley Quinn from Batman, the animated series. What started as a twisted love story has become arguably the most emotionally and physically abusive love affair in animated history. Harley Quinn, once a successful psychiatrist, fell deeply in love with the Joker and became his sidekick. Joker, however, manipulates and degrades her always, and she keeps crawling back convinced she can win his love. In Mad Love, Harley goes as far as capturing Batman, thinking it will impress the Joker. And what does she get for her efforts? A violent shove and a "Don't ever do that again!" Instead of realizing how dangerous Joker is, Harley tolerates the abuse, hoping that it will be different the next time. Fortunately for her, it never is and never will be. In The Laughing Fish, Joker uses Harley as bait for his scheme, without a second thought for her safety. He's more interested in beating Batman than acknowledging Harley's devotion. Then there's the Harley and Ivy episode where Harley temporarily breaks free of Joker's hold and teams up with Poison Ivy. But the second Joker shows her affection, she runs right back to him. It's a vicious cycle of abuse, manipulation, and neglect. And somehow people still romanticize this relationship? Let's get one thing straight here. There's nothing romantic about constant gaslighting and physical abuse. There you have it, guys. My pick for the worst cartoon lovers. Who are your worst cartoon lovers? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more cartoon content.